Thank you for joining our second virtual meet for the Null OWASP chapter. We've been here for, I think, over a year now, and Javed can correct me if I'm wrong. Uh, but it's, given the pandemic situation, I'm glad that we're at least able to meet up virtually and have these sessions so that everybody can gain something, learn something, and also share something with each other. So I just wanted to let you know that this event is being recorded, and if anybody has any objections, please you can raise them now. What we're going to do today is, oh, I should actually give you some time to raise any objections, right? My bad, sorry. So yes, no, maybe. I'll take that as a no. Nobody has any objections. Right. Moving on then. Uh, Today we have with us a lady speaker, Vandana Verma. She's a seasoned security professional with experience that ranges from application security to infrastructure and also deals with DevSecOps now. She has been a keynote speaker, trainer at various public events, ranging from Global OWASP AppSec events to BlackHat events to regional events like BSides events in India. She's a part of the OWASP Global Board of Directors. She also works in various community towards diversity initiatives, InfosecGirls, WoSec, and Null. She is a sister in arms. I have seen her, give these various talks across various spaces in the world of cybersecurity, always pushing for diversity and inclusion for women to join in. And I'm very glad that she's here today with us. And over to you, Vandana.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, Salma. And thank you so much, Gagan, for asking me so that I can get to know different audience and outside India. So let me get started by sharing my screen. And what we'll do is we will open it up for questions in the end. Hope that's fine with everyone.
Yeah, I don't think that should be a problem. That's fine.
All right. So I couldn't find a logo together, so I just used this one, wherein I just pulled up from the internet, and I hope this is the right one. So we are going to talk about web security testing guide. We all know that OWASP has OWASP is known for its flagship projects like top 10, majorly top 10. People say that when there is a vulnerability in web application, you should refer to OWASP top 10. What is OWASP? OWASP is Open Web Application Security Project, and it's not just the top 10. There are so many projects which are part of OWASP projects, wherein people like us contribute. There are so many people from different parts of the world who contribute to different projects, be it web application security testing, be it IoT, Kubernetes, mobile security, API security. So this way, I wanted to discuss more or emphasize more on the web security testing guide, because it's more of people have forgotten it or people use it less. People only think about, yes, there is only a top 10 guide that exists and we should only follow that. But beyond that, we don't know. So about me, I'm not going to discuss anything. Salma has already talked about it. So what this guide, who this guide is for, like who should be using it, and where exactly we can emphasize it on. So for security specialists, they can use this guide in combination with other techniques, like when we use our techniques to pen test an application. We have certain use cases that we use. So this guide can be very well used because it has exhaustive list of things which we are going to talk about in today's presentation. So as security researcher, we can figure it out and make sure that there is no security hole which have been missed in the application. So it tries and emphasizes on all the loopholes or web application security loopholes. Now, how about software testers and QA? How this can be useful? So for security testers and QA, we can use this guide to expand the set of test cases, because security testers have set of test cases wherein people test in Selenium or other testing tools. So this can be used there, and we can apply it on the applications, and we can catch the vulnerabilities, which can save our time, and we can actually reduce the time wherein security testers come and figure out the vulnerabilities. How about developers? Like, how can developers use this guide? Because I understand that this is a testing guide which people like security people like us can use it. And I can understand to an extent wherein a QA person or a software tester or a functional tester can use it. But why developers? So developers can use this guide to ensure that as a developer, we can produce the secure code. The tests should be part of the normal code and unit testing procedures. So it can be used. And on top of it, project managers can also benefit out of it, because this can provide them a big view that there's something that exists which they can look at, and they can also manifest that, okay, these are the bugs that can be there in an application. Because project managers, people say that they only facilitate, but I feel as part of the whole life cycle, or people call it DevSecOps or SDLC, whatever we say, they have a big role to play. So project managers can also get benefit out of it. Now, when we say testing, there are two sort of testing which can happen. If you've heard of it, it's passive testing and active testing. So passive testing, how it happens, or when it happens, when a tester tries to understand the application logic, like when I have to understand what exactly the application has to offer, what is there, and we're trying to explore that how many users are there, all of the things, especially starting from business logic to understanding the applications. And tools can be used for like information gathering, just scrubbing the application, banner grabbing, and we can use HTTP proxy, which can be used to observe the requests and responses. But when we talk about at the end of this passive testing phase, we as a tester can understand all the gates of the application, because there are so many vulnerabilities, or so many bugs can be found with the passive testing as well. If there's a web.config file which is available, which can be, if you scrub through the web proxy, or we run a just the checking the URL, we would be able to figure out what are the URLs which were supposed to be closed and now people can view it. So passive testing can help really in that. Apart from that, when we talk about active testing, we check for identity and access management, all those input validation vulnerabilities, error handling, cryptography. Then business logic testing, client-side testing. There are so many things that we test. So this guide is actually the introduction wherein we talk about how the active testing can be done and passive testing. So it touches upon some aspects of passive testing as well. Now, when we talk about the whole testing guide, in the whole scenario, I will be talking about few more things like application security verification standard, because I don't want you to just get lost in the application security testing guide because I am saying it and you should listen to it. No. So I am going to be explaining some portions. Okay, these are the things which are there, which can help you to kickstart it, or which sometimes even after so many years in the industry, I tend to miss. Okay, this is the thing that I missed. Oh, so testing guide helps me with that. And similarly, I use it along with other things. Now, to give you an example, like how this testing guide can help, wherein if I am submitting a form or filling a form, this is how the flow looks like. Like, first of all, I find a form. Then, which means I gather the information. Okay, this is what the form is, and now I need to fill. Now, once I submit the form, there are a few things that happens at the background wherein I fill in some parameters and the information flows through that. Once that's there, and there's an input validation that happens, or user gets authenticated. If the form allows you to log into an application with authentication, then the authentication flow will happen. If there's an unauthenticated user, the user will not go into the whole form or the whole process. Once that's done, we figure out what's the ID, whether there is a session that has to persist, validation of the data which is there on the application or what the user is providing. If validation works, what if there is an error? Yes, because there are so many errors which comes if we don't provide the right inputs. What was the cryptography used? And what is the security mechanism? And whether the output is being reflected or not. What could be the client side issues? Something that might not be aware to the users, or that the logic is there but that's not being validated properly, or something tools which tools might be able to help. So this whole process from finding the form till the end. Even for example, if you have a meetup page for Null Doha or OWASP Doha, people actually figure out, okay, there's something which exists. Then they log in, they RSVP, they subscribe to the page wherein if there is a next meetup, let's say next month, people will be able to get to know. So there's a whole process which goes behind. Now we will be touching upon each aspect of it. So this testing guide talks about just that, wherein it starts from the information gathering, talks about deployment or management testing, identity management testing, authentication testing, authorization testing, all of it. One thing to remember, it's a guide to provide you a view, but it doesn't mean that it goes just step by step this way. It can be like I might be checking as soon as I gather the information. I just go ahead and start testing for input validation, and then I check for session management. So it can vary from one portion to another. So we will be touching just that. Now, apart from that, what section it caters to, it talks about summary, that what information gathering is. Now, how do you test for information gathering? What are the tools that can help us? Because one tool cannot cater to everything. When we talk about Burp Suite or OWASP Zap, which is the attack proxy, that might be able to cater to something, but that doesn't mean that it caters to every vulnerability. So there might be some other tool that can help us with the directory listing, like Derbuster, or we have to scan the ports. So we might be using Nmap. We might be using Initto, or for application scrubbing, we must be using something else. And references to some white papers, which can be helpful. So in information gathering, first of all, we need to understand what is information gathering. What are we doing here? And why are we even talking about, okay, we have to first perform the information gathering. So information gathering, what do? We conduct or we use search engines for reconnaissance, wherein information could be leaked. I have seen there's a huge information that you can grab or you can get it just by doing the reconnaissance. Now, how about fingerprinting this web server? What information can you get? If you get to know what is the web server at the backend, or what's the version of that web server, you will be using, or we will be using, the targeted attack on the application. Similarly, when we talk about information gathering, we might want to gather the meta files, or how we can enumerate the applications so that we get the information from the web server. We check the web content, wherein I have seen that in the past, people used to hard code the secrets, or in the if you check the view source. So there are still applications which can actually give you that view, like vulnerable web apps, not the actual web apps, wherein if you check the view source, you get the hint for the password. You get the application logic, even how the passwords are being generated, that logic. Are you supposed to get that? No. If I know how the password is being generated, how easy is it to break that logic? Super easy. So the similar way. And all this information, if I know that these are certain ports which are open, or this vulnerability exists on this application, I will just target that, and that's all. I will get the application access. Now, apart from that, when we talk about deployment or management testing or configuration management testing, there's a huge information that can be grabbed with that. And that can actually provide us the whole network infrastructure, or information, or application platform information. Alongside, we can test for file extensions. There are times wherein if you are testing for file upload vulnerability, or file upload functionality, if you try and upload some other file, or file extension, and that gets uploaded. How good or bad it is. I have uploaded shells on an application just by changing the extensions, and that's really possible. So all those things can be taken care, can be tested when we talk about deployment testing. Because if we don't understand what configuration and deployment testing is and what all things can be tested, we wouldn't be able to find it. How about testing for HTTP methods, strict transport layer security, file permissions? Because if you get access to the files which you're not supposed to get access to, you would be able to get access to anything. Another vulnerability I remember that people are exploiting subdomain takeover. And even recently, somebody told me that they were able to get the subdomain takeover for one of the known applications, which is known to be. So we had to submit a ticket and then get it fixed. So all these things, how do you test it? How do you find it? What those things are? If you don't know, you wouldn't be able to test it. If you know how to test it, all those answers are actually there in the testing guide, and that's why I emphasize on that. And then identity management testing. People say identities are loosely tested, or people are not very considerate about it. But think about right now, we are all homebound, like we are all home, and there's only one thing that is actually keeping us going is identities. Rather, we wouldn't be able to work from home if we don't have a username, password. If we don't have a VPN, we wouldn't be able to log into our applications, and we'll just be out of the job. So there's another important aspect which people have started emphasizing more, which has been there for a while, like since 2008, 9, or even 10, I would say, zero trust. People have started talking about it. That yes, there are multiple aspects that we have to touch upon, and identity management is also one important aspect in that. So, what is identity management? What are we testing? Where exactly we are testing, and what are the things we should be testing? So we can talk about role management testing. What are the role definitions? Then we can test for a user registration process, because user registration process, if it's smooth, user tend to stay with the organization. And then account provisioning, because it's very important to have a smooth provisioning and making sure that single sign-on is there, rather than just using a manual process and losing all those credentials. Earlier, what used to happen, people thought, or even organizations thought, that anything who's part of the organization, who's sitting within the four walls, is like a good user, but outside the boundary is a bad user. But right now, we are not in the organization. Like since March, we have not gone to office, and it's like a huge time that 4-5 months that we have not gone to office, and we are all working. So how should we deal with that? Shouldn't we consider that anything who's inside the organization is also insecure? Or if they lose the credentials, if there's an admin user who loses the credentials, could be XYZ reason, like malware, or they put in the credentials somewhere, or somebody just was able to brute force them. What could go wrong? If they have access to the crown jewels, or the applications which are confidential, or which should be like, access should be given to only certain users, anyone can access it. Or we have seen the breaches wherein people were able to take over Twitter using the internal employees and the internal admin tool. What happened? There was a message that was posted on Twitter from the high profile people, and people actually like use the bitcoins. There was a huge amount of money that went there. So all these things we can test, and obviously multi-factor authentication has to be there. Another thing is, when we say authentication testing or authorization testing, all of it go alongside, wherein we get to know that whether we are transporting the credentials over encrypted channel or not. If you see there's an HTTP, why do you have to transfer why do you have to put in your credentials anywhere? If you've got a phishing email and you don't see that it's a legit site, why do you have to use it? And there's an interesting example I'll give you that I was working for one of the project, not recently, but quite some time back, wherein we scanned some servers, and those servers came up with default credentials. Okay, we tried just out of curiosity, we opened a couple of IPs, and we figured out that those were some camera IPs. Then when it says default credentials, how we can check it? How much time it takes to figure out what's the default credentials for a certain vendor? You just have to Google it. How many passwords would you get? 25, 30 max? So when we started testing it, after like 4th or 5th, we got into those cameras, and those cameras for the known facility. So if you know that this is for my known facility, what could go wrong? Like if a malicious user comes in, or if a disgruntled employee is there, it doesn't take much time to gather the information, gather the crown material, or the information that shouldn't be available to anyone and everyone. So that's what happened. Like we wanted to play table tennis, and that table used to be always busy. So when we got access to that particular camera, which was near that. So every time that table used to be empty, we used to run there, and then somebody used to be there and said, like, we started playing there. We reported that vulnerability the same day. It took 1 week to fix that. And 1 week is not a small amount of time. Like these kind of vulnerability has to be fixed as soon as possible. Another important thing, password policy. I can still see that there's so many accounts which have like a password policy of 8 characters or even lesser. Why do you have to use it? So there was another project when I started working on cloud, wherein we started getting to know about that these are the accounts that we have, and we have to make sure that all these accounts are secure and we are managing them properly. So the first thing that we saw, people were using the root credentials, or people were using the main admin credentials everywhere. They were using SSH keys and whatnot. And the funny fact was that the password that they were using was just 6 characters. That was really funny. And some places were just 8 characters. And what could be the password? Capital P, ASSW0RD. How difficult is it is to guess? And all those security questions and all those reset functionalities, if the applications don't have the proper reset functionality, so the accounts are gone. You cannot save anywhere. Now, another important aspect that comes into picture is if we talk about how we can bypass the authorization schema. Why do we have to keep the bypass mechanisms in the response? Like I have seen there's so much functionality, or there's so much logic which is there in the application request and response. Why do we need to have it? Another thing, we can test for privilege escalation. That's really important. And if people say that yes, we have a good security in place, still, if a malicious actor is able to get into the network, even though with just the normal permissions, and we don't have proper privilege permissions, or we are not using principles of least privilege, we can easily get into the network, can easily be able to escalate the privileges. An insecure direct object reference is another big headache, which is not part of OWASP top 10 anymore, but still it exists in a lot of applications. Session management testing is another vulnerability wherein we can test for cookie attributes, session fixation. So one of the applications which I was testing, wherein the application was for one of the big exam that happens. And if you think that that application was secure, no. If you think of any session fixation vulnerability, that was existing there. The token, after every 20 attempts, like every 20, 25 tokens, the token used to come. It was not at all a secure random token. It was just a token which was coming after every 25 attempts or 30 attempts. I remember that it was coming. We filled it in the Excel sheet and we started using it. Now, at a certain point, our session would work, or we would be able to fix the session. And cookie attributes were able to provide a lot of information, and we were able to play around with it. So all these things, sometimes we miss out on logout functionality or lockout functionality. What can go wrong? We would be able to lose the session or lose the identity. So all these things have to be tested properly. And how do you test it? We can actually go to testing guide and we can figure it out. Similarly, how do you test for input validation? Because input validation is not a small thing. It's like a huge set of test cases, starting from cross-site scripting to parameter pollution to Oracle testing, and then MySQL. So much things going on there. So all those things are listed out there. That what is it? What is an LDAP injection? How do you perform XML injection? How do you do code injection, local file inclusion? And there's a recently I've seen that a lot of people have started exploiting more and more command injection. Like it was there for sure. Injection vulnerability has been there for ages and it will be there because there's something that keeps coming up. If we fix a bug, sometimes there's another bug that comes up. So all those conjunction bugs keep coming up, and but how do you handle that? We can just go there and get to know about it, get to experience, and then just try and exploit them or fix them. So web security testing guide is not just for offensive purpose, but for defensive purpose. And here I am emphasizing both at the same time. Because if there is a breaker, like if I am a good breaker and I'm not a good defensive person, I'm not a good security expert. I need to understand how to break it. Okay, I can find the exploit and I was able to break an application. But how to fix that bug or how to prevent that bug from, or how to prevent that vulnerability to be breached. So if we know it, then we are a good researcher. That's what I feel. Like everyone has their own perception, but this is what I feel, that if I don't know how to fix a bug, then I wouldn't be able to justify to my organization, okay, this is how we can secure our organization. Another important piece is error handling, and how do you handle all those stack traces and all those errors which are providing the information. Then weak cryptography for SSL, TLS, spreading vulnerabilities, weak encryption. Now, I have talked about all of this a lot, even business logic testing, like how do you test for processing timing, integrity check, business logic validation, all of that. I have talked enough of that, but let me go ahead and show you where exactly we can find all of that. Now, when you go to owasp.org, that's the simple page. Here, I have opened the testing guide, but let me go to projects. Here, under projects, all the projects are listed. If you see, starting from the flagship projects, which are known to which are being used by a lot of people, to the people which are still in incubator, to the lab projects. So all these are flagship projects which people are using a lot. And then these are lab projects which can be integrated with our labs, and then those are more of experimental projects. Then these are incubator projects which are still under process, and those are still yet to gain the flagship status. But there are so many wonderful projects which are here, like a security coding dojo, security rat. All of these are like wonderful projects. Now, but where to go for the security testing guide? So if we see here, we have web security testing guide. Now, I am reading it, but I feel that there is something which can be more relevant for it. Now, as a security tester, as a developer, or a security architect, or a security, not security, but a software tester, or a QA person, or a developer. So how can I contribute to it? Where exactly I can look for it? I will just go to GitHub repository. You can actually do a pull request. You can suggest. There are so many people who keep contributing. And you might feel that there's even one spelling mistake. We can also help with that, wherein people can correct it. People like us are contributing to all these projects. So people like us only can help in refining, adding more details. And you might be there in the industry for 1 year, or for 2 years, or for 15 years. Anyone who feels that yes, there has to be some addition that should happen, please feel free to do a pull request. The project leader will review actually, and then will approve everything. And if you just want to read through it, all the list, all the details are here. You can just go to each document. If you want to download, go to the PDF and download the PDF file, and modifications I said that you can contribute. Another important thing which goes side by side testing guide is ASVS, which is application security verification, which is very close to my heart, which I really use it, or which I really like, because now I know that this is something which exists. The testing guide exists. These are the test cases. But how about I create an Excel file or a Word document which can just complement to what I am doing, or if I want to add something to it, how I can do it. So if you can see, there's a PDF file, there's a Word document, there's a CSV document. I can just download it from the GitHub, and I can start using it. If there's a Word document, I can just start using it. And how will I be able to use it? Because every application is different. So there might be an application which is like a critical application. So the basic use cases might not be relevant. There might be some advanced use cases which might be needed. So all of this are listed here. Like what should be checked when we talk about a level 3 application or severity 3 application, and then or maturity levels. So there are maturity level from 0 to 3. So all of this can be checked here. So if there's a high value or a high severity application, what are things can be done? So this can be really, really helpful. Similarly, for testing guide, let me show you in detail. Let me go here. Here, if you can see, if I have to start the pen testing, I can start understanding what the penetration testing is. And then it starts with even threat modeling if you want to know about it. But I always go to 4th chapter and start getting to experience what I have to do. So this is the first thing which was as an OWASP was introduced to me when I started working in application security. Before than that, I was just thinking that OWASP, like, it's just this, nothing else. Then when I started reading about it, I started researching more on the internet. I got to know it's not just the testing guide or just not the test cases. It's much more than that. It's the community which people make. Like right now we are meeting for Null and OWASP Doha. And apart from that, it's also projects which people contribute to, like OWASP Zap. So OWASP Zap, if I remember correctly, the project leader was testing the use cases, and he was just fed up, okay, there's something that should exist. So the person came up with Zap. And then it became a flagship project, which a lot of organizations use, which has like so many APIs wherein QAs are integrating that so that we can automate it. Because people have started talking about DevSecOps. So everything has to be automated. So how we can automate all these test cases? That's where testing I can help that, okay, this is how test cases can be automated. And how we can do the client-side testing. What are the tools of trade? How do you report them? Now, this is, I wanted to talk about testing guide, and I didn't want to bore you much with that, but I wanted to emphasize that let's start using it. There are resources which exist, but sometimes we don't know about them. Sometimes we don't know how to use it. Sometimes we don't have the actual view of that. There were so many OWASP projects that I didn't know that are used for defensive purpose. Like there is one cheat sheet. So let me show you the cheat sheet series. Okay, let me click on here. If I talk about cheat sheet series, it's one wonderful place wherein it provides you the holistic view of everything. Like what it is, how it can be used, everything. What are the abuse cases? How we can test for like access controls, everything. If you can see from tip to toe, everything is there. And who should be using it? where should be used. Every single item is there. And if you feel there's something which is missed, please feel free to contribute to it. Yeah. So let me stop sharing and let me open it up for questions, or if you have anything that any feedback, please feel free to let me know. See, I speak a lot and I wait for questions. Even though there's a pin drop silence, I don't mind that. Like, if you don't ask me questions, I'll shamelessly be there and keep waiting for your questions, because I know we all have some questions. When I started off, I had so many questions, but I was reluctant in asking questions. It took me good 4 years to come out of my shell and start asking people that, yes, how should I do it? I was
Do we
doing
have?
just my.
Hi, this is Nachiket.
Hi.
Hi, Swara. Hi, Vandana. Sorry, your name is coming under Swara of Sahgal. Anyway, I
Okay.
have one question related to SharePoint platform. Do we have
Mhm.
anything to offer from OWASP related to SharePoint platform? Testing of
Uh,
SharePoint?
Testing SharePoint. I can check.
Yeah,
Give me 2 minutes because I don't remember that. But testing SharePoint. So what I can do is I can actually get back to you on that. Right now,
yeah.
I don't have the information with me, but I can figure out whether that's there or not.
Hi, Vandana, Javed here. So
I
let me
doubt it.
start you some questions I have in my mind. So, when we talk about web applications security in defense, not testing, so we talk about web application firewall, and lots of time we stuck there. But nowadays,
Mhm.
lots of technologies are there, like runtime application self protection,
Right.
and we have like database security tools like GAT.
Mhm.
Lots of tools are there. Like from IBM, there are tools. Imperva, there are the tools. So, what's
Mhm.
your view on that? Like, are they are good, or I just want to know like how you feel. Either it is important, or either they are going to add value or not for any in-house applications.
So all these things, see, tools do help. I'm not a big supporter of tools, but there are certain tools which you should have. As an organization, we all should have it. And when we say web application firewall, I am a big supporter of that. Even OWASP has a open source firewall. So what I say is that if you want to use any certain tool, first test it out from you by using the open source technology, whether that's relevant for an organization or not. So if I have a dependency checker, which is checking for third-party libraries, you must be knowing about Equifax. So that happened. That hack happened because of the open source project that was in use, but that was a vulnerable library which was in use. We cannot blame any project. It was just that the project was not updated properly. And so we have to have some mechanism wherein we can figure out, okay, this is the thing that might be required for us. If we have APIs, so we need to have some mechanism wherein we can test or we can validate the APIs. We can test for APIs. So that's a need of the hour. So if we need it, we should use it. But the first thing is whether a tool is relevant for us or not. We cannot just go ahead and blindly buy tools. Some organizations which have like money for buying those tools, they go ahead, but then at the end of the implementation, it comes out that that tool is not at all relevant. So first, how about testing it and figuring out those things are relevant or not, and then buying it. That's my view. So any tool that we have purchased in the past, not for my current organization, like because I don't want to say anything um, which is because of my which is for my organization. Because right now I'm speaking on my own capability. So I would say that I've always emphasized that let's evaluate that and then use it. But yes, tools are important for sure. In some way or the other, they are important. They are for the ease of organization and for security purposes as well.
Uh, Thank you. I totally agree with you on this point. Sorry, I have lots of questions normally, so I have one more question.
So,
What's your view on like as comparison, and which one is more important when we talk about static and dynamic testing and source
yeah.
code? Compare source code review with the normal our dynamic and static testing.
Both are important. Now,
Both. Yeah.
I'll tell you why. And even I'll add something to it is software composition analysis. Like all of them are important. Why? Because if you've seen the trend, the research says that if there is a bug which can be fixed in the code, then why don't we fix in the code and then come to the testing? Because when I started off in my career in information security or application security testing, people were not emphasizing on the code review at all. Like it was just the testing after QA has done the testing. It used to come to us. We find the bugs. It goes to production or no. So we have said no, go. Like I was a killer where people say that security is a roadblocker. I have been that. Like trust me, it's like over the years I've changed a lot with the environment, but I have been that wherein I've said no, this application cannot go live. So that used to happen. But now the need of the hour is that we cannot take that chance. We need to fix early. So we need to have both at the same time, and all with the automated process. So we find the bugs in the code, fix them. We find the bugs in the QA environment or during the dynamic testing and fix that. And important aspect is software composition analysis. There's a research by White Source wherein over 96% of the code in our applications or on the internet is all the third-party code or the open source code. Now, when we are using a huge amount of code which is like open source and we don't update it at the right time, don't fix the vulnerabilities which are there, what can go wrong? Like we are using the known components or we are using the components with known vulnerabilities and breaches like Equifax or there are so many other breaches. Those will keep happening. So it's important. Both. I wouldn't want to say that if we are doing source code review, we are good at the dynamic testing, because there will be business logic testing. There will be session management bugs. There will be so many other bugs which can be tested using dynamic testing, and we cannot avoid them at any cost. Like I wouldn't want to take a chance on them.
Thank you for the answer. Anybody have any other questions, Salma?
Yeah, Nachiket here again.
Hi, Nachiket.
Hi. For the platform-based applications, like again, I'm taking example of SharePoint. What do you suggest a better option for testing? What is the best option for testing?
So first thing is SharePoint is not an open source application. It's a product based application which is being provided by one of the vendors, correct?
Right.
So
right.
whether they let you do the pen test on that particular application or not. Because if you have your data on there in that particular application, your data is there on a third party application. So that third party application vendor has to allow you for the pen testing or a testing. You might be able to try the logic testing, but again, I don't think that you would be able to test it. They will be able to share the pen test reports with you, but they wouldn't let you test, as per my understanding. Now I remember, SharePoint is by Microsoft, so I don't think so Microsoft will let you pen test that, or they'll just block your access if they let you do it, or you tell them that I'm going to onboard your application and test it. Because I have worked on one of the pieces of technology wherein we were evaluating third-party vendors as well, like as part of application security, a team or application security the owner of that group. So my role was to evaluate any third-party vendor which was getting onboarded to the organization. So if it could be Microsoft Teams or Microsoft SharePoint, if we are onboarding, we have to test it. So if we are not testing, what we can do is we can ask them for the SOC reports, SOC 2 reports. So I'm not sure if they allow you. If they allow you, let me go back and figure out if there is a way to test it. Because I don't want to give you any wrong answer or like put you in a soup wherein I give you a wrong answer. So I would say I'm going to go back and figure it out and come back to you for sure, Nachiket.
Okay.
So there's one more answer that I wanted to give you. You're saying SS. I